If you struggle with bloating and you're eating a super healthy, super clean diet, you eat better than everybody else you know, and despite that, you look 6 months pregnant with bloating by the end of the day, there are 5 healthy foods that might be making your bloating worse or even causing it altogether. Hi, I'm Ksenia. I'm a functional health practitioner, and I'm on a mission to fix constipation and bloating for everyone. So, first of all, let's go over the fact that there are 2 kinds of bloating. There is gas-related bloating and there's histamine-related bloating. So gas-related bloating is when gas builds up in your intestines. This can happen because there is either bacterial overgrowth in the wrong place, so there's bacteria growing in the small intestine when we want it to be mostly or only in the colon, or you have an imbalance of bacteria, so you have dysbiosis, which basically means you have too much bad bacteria, unwanted bacteria, versus good commensal bacteria that we want. Now, when there is this overgrowth of bacteria, either in the location that we don't want or of the populations that we don't want, when your food arrives, these bacteria ferment on the food and create gas as a byproduct. This gas builds up in your stomach and creates that bloating. Now, this gas can also come from low digestive output. What is digestive output? That's your upstream digestion. That's your stomach, your liver, your gallbladder, your pancreas. They create stomach acid, digestive enzymes, and bile that should digest your food a lot, making it into a very liquid, pre-digested consistency before it arrives to your small intestine, so that then your small intestine can assimilate it. But if these digestive outputs aren't functioning optimally, this food arrives in too large of chunks, so not digested enough into your small intestine or even into your colon, where once again these bacteria, even the good ones, have the opportunity to ferment on them, to eat them, and that creates gas as a byproduct, and too much gas creates that bloating. The second type of bloating that I mentioned earlier is histamine-related bloating. Histamine is natural and it's normal to have certain levels of histamine. We create it as a byproduct of digestion, but it's also contained in foods. Our intestines, when functioning optimally and healthily, produce an enzyme called DAO that is able to break down these histamines. But when we get damage to our intestinal lining, for reference, I'm showing an image of what optimal lining looks like and what leaky gut lining looks like. So when our gut lining looks like this, these crevices that you can see there at the bottom are where DAO is normally produced, and they're stunted. They're not able to produce the DAO optimally and aren't able to digest histamines in the food. And when we have a histamine overload, so we have too much histamine in our system, that can create inflammation in the gut and water retention, once again creating that really bloated, inflamed feeling. So that's the 2 types of bloating, and here are the 5 foods that can irritate that bloating that are healthy and should be a part of our normal healthy diet. But when you have a compromised gut, these foods can make your bloating worse or even completely trigger a bloating episode. So the first food is fermented food. Now, I know you're seeing everywhere online everybody recommending to eat fermented foods like kimchi and sauerkraut and kefir and kombucha, and these are great, these are healthy foods. But when your gut lining is damaged, you aren't able to produce enough of the DAO enzyme, and you're not able to absorb, to digest the histamines in this food. And fermented foods are very high in histamine. Because these fermented foods are also adding probiotic populations, when they are creating a probiotic population in your small intestine, for example, because they're not able to properly settle in your colon, they can create an episode of where too much gas is created in your small intestine. There's too much of a bacterial population in your small intestine. This can often happen to the malfunction of the ileocecal valve. It can get stuck closed where the bacteria can't pass to the colon like they should, and they get stuck in the small intestine, and all this gas starts to build up. So even though fermented food is very healthy, it should be added in at a very late stage of your gut healing journey, when you've been able to rebalance the dysbiosis and reduce unwanted bacterial populations and are ready to recolonize your colon. Number 2 is high fiber foods like beans, like whole grains, like chia seeds. Again, I know that you're seeing everywhere online that fiber is the thing for bloating and constipation, and fiber is great, but it's the same thing as the fermented foods. If you add it in before you're ready, it just feeds the problem rather than provides a solution. If your motility is sluggish and food isn't going through your small intestine as fast as it should be, or if you have bacteria in the small intestine, this fiber will start to ferment there. which is going to create gas as a byproduct. Again, if you have an imbalance in your colon, so if you have too much bad bacteria, that fiber will feed that bad bacteria. It will increase in population and create gas as a byproduct, giving you that bloated feeling and giving you a lot of farts. So fiber is great, but again, it needs to be strategically added in the latter part of your gut healing journey, not early on. Number 3 is leftovers. And now I get that we all have limited amount of time during the week and we need to meal prep. But if you are going to meal prep, I really recommend that you freeze the food and then reheat it, because when it sits cooked in your fridge, it creates histamines overnight, especially when it's meats and animal product. And those histamines, once again, if you have damage to your gut lining, if you have leaky gut, and if you have digestive issues, you have leaky gut. Everybody has leaky gut. Everybody who struggles with digestive symptoms has leaky gut. So if you struggle with that, you're not going to be able to break down the histamines that have built up in the leftover food. So my recommendation to you is freeze the meal prepped foods that you've made, at the very least meat, and reheat them in the oven the next day rather than just going from the fridge to the microwave. Number 4 is high protein healthy snacks. Now there are so many snacks on the market that are marketed as healthy, and everything that's high protein right now is venerated or even high fiber, but these highly processed snacks usually have a lot of synthetic ingredients, a lot of additives, even natural flavors that don't need to be disclosed, fillers, artificial sweeteners. All of these together wreak havoc on your microbiome. They're doing more harm than good, especially when it's vegan protein powders, because to create that kind of protein content in a vegan powder, so from like pea protein, they have to condense so many peas in a small amount of powder. It's just not natural for our gut to digest that much of that food. So if you're looking for a high protein snack, I would just recommend some turkey cold cuts or some Parmesan cheese or some Greek yogurt with honey and berries. Better to go with these whole foods rather than those high protein bars and shakes and things like that. And last but not least, in number 5, cruciferous vegetables. Once again, these are healthy. Yes, these are good for you. When I say that, I mean Brussels sprouts, cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, kale. We all associate these as a healthy food, which it is. But once again, when you have dysbiosis, when you have an imbalance in bacterial location or population wise, these foods are going to produce sulfur as a byproduct when they're digested. When we don't have the bacteria that are able to utilize and eat that sulfur, then gas in our gut. First of all, it creates bloating, and second of all, it creates really strong smelling farts, like that rotten egg smell that's often from high sulfur foods. As a bonus little one, onions and garlic are often really reactive for people who are struggling with digestive issues. Now, once again, just to sum it up, these are healthy foods, and these should be added back into your lifestyle and your nutrition later in your gut healing stage. But if you're eating those while you haven't addressed the bacterial imbalances in your gut, then they're going to create bloating and gas. I hope this was really helpful. Let me know if there's anything else about nutrition that you find confusing in the comments, and I'll cover it in my next video. See you.